especially when you look into the ghetto mentality?
I don't think they tend to think they go hand in hand. Now that I'm
You
thinking
made it
about
sound,
both.
you tried to make it to sound politically correct that they are the same. So that's what I'm asking.
No,
Are they the same?
no, I didn't say they are the same. I said one triggers the other.
So what does that
Like
mean?
let me just give a simple example.
Mm.
Let me just give a simple example, yeah? I go like right now, I go hang out with people talking about let's say cars, and they're talking about maybe the different logos, the CG engine powers, the what, like different things about cars. And I'm in that setup and I know nothing about literally cars. The only thing I can tell probably about cars is, let's say, colors, yeah? In that particular place, what I'll feel is stupid because these people are like, oh God, like they have this much knowledge about it. So now that, depending on now me and the kind of mindset that I have, will trigger two things. Either one, curiosity, or the other thing will be ignorance.
Thank
So I
you.
can choose to be ignorant of the situation and be like, you know what, I don't really care about it. Or now I'll go and I'll be like, okay, what is this logo stand for? So
Thank
now
you.
I'll
So
become
you
curious. I'll
actually
start asking
do,
questions.
so you have actually stated it clear that ignorance is actually stupidity, ignorance equal the same. That's what you said. It's either or.
Eh,
If
I'll put it like this: stupidity. No, let me see. I'll put it as there is stupidity, there is ignorance, and there is curiosity. I'll put it as stupidity. Hey, sasa ni sign language gani hapo? Ni sign gani? But what
Sign
I
language
haven't
as well,
said they're
but
the
it's
same.
your go to call.
Stupidity. Ni juu najaribu kutafuta something. I was trying to see if I can do something like an algebra but imekataa. So I'll just say stupidity will raise curiosity, and at that point of curiosity now you have a choice, whether to be curious and go get the answers, or to be ignorant
But
about
they
the
are not the
situation.
same, right?
They are not. Stupidity, curiosity, and ignorance are different
Warembo,
things,
kwani you're
but
not
one
listening to
ignites the
understand?
No, you
Do
other.
you
see,
want
the
to
thing
prove a
is,
If
point?
you're
okay,
ignorant, you'll say stupid.
Dizo, why I say this is because she's already in now. What she's trying to do is from previously the way she had explained it was this. We were looking at stupidity in conjunction to curiosity. So now there's an aspect of ignorance that is being introduced as now a different altogether. But it's fine. So TMP, when you're done, I think I would want to hear also what Doreen have to say. Probably I'm the one who's stupid in all this, that I may not really be listening or understand what's going on.
Probably.
As I said,
But
no,
as
wacha,
in,
wacha, wacha
let, let,
TMP amalize, then we
let me
have
add.
Doreen
Let me
after.
let me add on. Let me just add on her point. She has really explained it well. Wewe ndio hutaki tu kuigrasp because it doesn't fit your narrative. She has said
It
one
wasn't about
triggers
it
the
fitting
other.
my narrative, by the way. I was only
Well,
asking.
what don't you understand by her saying one triggers the other? What is this that you
And
really
that
want to
okay,
hear?
Dizo Nandiona Kwambia.
Uh,
As much as you say, guys, I don't listen, and Beko says we need to get a machine that really helps me listen better. I do listen.
uh.
So at one
So
point, no, before
how didn't you understand
can I finish?
that one triggers the other?
Now, can I finish? And that's the thing. And the
Yes.
question I asked was this: are they the same? She said no. Only for her to add a third aspect and say that ignorance is actually different again from the same. But from the explanation she did before she said this, she said that for stupidity, it's coming from a place of ignorance. Curiosity is and she gave it with a very good example, especially when she used the cars and said this. If you don't understand the cars, you'll be like, this is stupid. But if you are curious enough, you'll ask the questions. So if you're ignorant enough, then push yourself to the place of curiosity, you'll ask. So that is what I'm saying. Fine, they might trigger, but that's why I was asking. I didn't need her to explain so much. It was a place of yes. You cannot say stupidity and ignorance come from the same place. As stupidity and curiosity are the same. What I was saying is this, they're
She
not the
didn't say
same.
that. She said stupidity triggers curiosity. Then
From
with
a point of
curiosity,
ignorance. So that's what I was saying. There's a
no,
bridge. There's a bridge
Eh,
of
eh,
ignorance
eh.
that asks for the right question so that you become curious. Anyway,
I think
Clearly hakuna kitu utasikia yenye inasemwa hapa. You already have a narrative
it's
that you
okay.
want to go
By
with.
the Diesel, it's okay. So let me do this. I'll not even speak again. Speak with Doreen, and then I no with TMP, and then Doreen can chime in on.
okay. I think when I answered the science question, Karamba, if that's the reference you're using, I said stupidity, ignorance nimeintroduce to sahi, but what I said earlier when I was talking about the science thing is you realize you don't know. The moment you realize you don't know, then that is when you become curious. So you ask the questions towards getting the answers. And then right now when I was giving this other example here, guy introduced the ignorance bit because I might as well just decide, you know what, cars may not even ever serve me in life. Do I have getting to know about gods and just decide not to? Because at that particular juncture, by the time I am having that particular discussion, I have realized I do not know about this particular thing. So do I become curious about it and go learn, or do I just ignore it? Because, well, there's so many things, there's so many reasons as to why you might decide to ignore something. Maybe it won't serve you, it's just a waste of time and things like that. So you might as well decide to be ignorant about it. But I don't think the two terms are the same, and I don't think I have said the two terms are the same, but I've said they go hand in hand. That is for sure.
And you know,
I
TMP
think
now.
Maybe
that one
Doreen,
I think
Doreen
that one she has
akona.
listened. Doreen, go ahead.
Thank you. I think Karimbo is asking whether stupidity and curiosity is the same. And from what I've heard Michael and Karimbo saying is it's just the same thing, just that they're using different words. And this is my understanding. I look at it from the point of a research question. So, let me what do I use? What do I use? Okay, let me use maybe the area of like climate change. So let's say I'm a climate change expert, and all I do is read on climate change, write articles on climate change. So then I come and realize, uh, maybe there's a gap that's explaining what's I don't want to get too technical, but there's a gap between this research and this research, or this article and this article. So I will come and realize and form maybe a research question. The research question will come from a point of there is no backing to this research question. So I have to find out what is the basis, what is the answer to this research question, meaning there is no knowledge of it. So if there is lack of knowledge, then you could say you are stupid. At the same time, you could say, uh, because stupidity, of course, as Baiko has mentioned, he has explained what stupidity means to him. He has said lack of knowledge. So, of course, I don't have any knowledge when I'm approaching that research question. Then I am stupid. If I am stupid, then I will try to get knowledge and become not stupid. At the same time, um, if on my research question, then I can also say that I am curious to know. Well, if they say that this is the position and this is the position, then there is a gap. So I'm trying to know why is this, like, to answer this research question. Then of course I am curious to want to have an answer to this research question. So for me, I wouldn't say, of course, in the definition of terms, even if we Google it, the curiosity and stupidity will have a different explanation. But when you listen to Baiko and you listen to Karembo, they're just saying the same thing. So, just that they're using different terms. And then also, I wanted to talk about systems. I'm trying to understand. Okay, of course, I've been trying to follow from me joining late, so I don't know where this conversation had come from. And I, like, from even when we were told the topic, I was just grappling with what is ghetto mentality. But maybe I won't get into that because maybe you've had a conversation about it. But I will talk about systems.
Go there, you don't.
Um,
Don't cut yourself. As in, you can give us your definition of ghetto mentality. Siogope.
ni vile hata okay, sielewi. Okay, I mean, I had Diesel talking about, like, when we were starting, I had him talk about ghetto mentality and being a punk, and it. Okay, let me first go to systems, and then maybe you can go to ghetto mentality, because I don't need to lose my train of thought. But systems, I agree with whoever said that they were formed by people who maybe at some point don't even know what they were doing, and I refuse to be caged by systems, because I can I don't want to work my way around systems. I want to create my own system that works for me. Because whoever sat down, I think systems are just basically a cage to limit your way of thinking and to limit whether you can even think, if I may say so. Because um, a topic that's close to my heart that might is very controversial, a bit is feminism. And sometimes eh, eh, sitaput correct, leta tu niseme vile nitasema, ikitoka vibaya shauri yenu. I think feminism sort of puts a very heavy burden on a woman that they shouldn't even be bearing. Because I have sat and interacted with feminists who seem tired, because they're trying to go maybe against a system that has been established. And okay, one thing is clear: if Diesel and I are working the same job, then we have to be paid the same money. Because I mean, like, there is we are putting in the same input. Then at the end of the day, we have to be paid the same amount of money. That's correct. But if I come and realize that as a woman, I am not being heard, I'm not being heard by a certain, maybe there's a certain system that has been established, and I'm not being heard, then why don't I form a system that will work for me? Could the system be listen and then find a way to frame? Because of course there's a way you can frame something without entirely rejecting what the other person is saying, and try to give them credit even if, okay, they don't have credit to what they're saying, and now bring in what you want to put in. So what I'm trying to say is, for me, I will not, as a woman, I will not try to fight a system that was established by people who are trying to establish a system. Or if there's a system, even if, at the very least, I don't even know whether there's a system. But I will try to come and see if I am coming to a space where I think that maybe these men are very entitled to their own opinion. How can I thrive in that situation? Because sometimes I will be so burdened by trying to say women and men are equal to people who don't even care whether women or men are equal. And sometimes it might even work in your favor if you, let me not repeat myself a lot, but I'm just trying to say, as I wrap up, that sometimes feminism is putting burdens, like a huge burden on women that they shouldn't be bearing. And this is a system. So if a woman came up and decided, let me form my own way of doing things that sort of doesn't align to any system, then everything is easier. The burden is taken off your shoulder. So systems are just a cage, and they're just a way to limit our thinking and to limit what we can do.
Doreen, are you a
Just
feminist?
and again, feminism is just an example. There are so many other things. So yeah, nimemaliza.
Are you a feminist?
Baiko, can I add something
Yeah, go ahead.
on whatever Dorina said? You see, the approach you're taking is that's the approach from alignment. Now, most people are not approaching things from alignment, or let me say, most of us, like 99.9%, are not approaching things from alignment because we were programmed or conditioned into the system we found. So we continued with the system that we are familiar with. So it's like what TMP was saying, like every every generation now comes up with their own system. It's the same thing with that ile idea good times make uh, good times makes
Yeah. Good times
ni
make.
Weak men. Hard
weak
times
men.
make strong men.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Good times make weak men make hard times make strong men make good times. Like now it turns into a cycle. And then also when she talked about having like rich people, just it's like just families. This cycle will never end. Like this cycle will always be there. Like there will always be good times. These good times are going to create the weak men. The weak men are going to create hard times. Hard times are going to create the strong men. So it's a cycle that is always going to be there. The difference is the consciousness and intention. Some families that have found the loophole will remain conscious and intentional and use that as a secret of the family to maintain the wealth in their generation, because they know that pattern continues. So they know, when right now we are having good times, then in our family make sure that generation is given hard times so that we can create strong men, while the system is creating weak men. So in that case, our men are going to come out unique. Then when the party, the weak men now making the society a hard time, your kids that you've already raised to be strong men are not going to have a problem with this hard time. So their generation is going to remain secured. It is not going to be dysfunctional. It is not going to be acting out of survival. It's going to be acting out of alignment. Like when you're born in this and they know during that generation what is happening, if it is hard times, then you focus on, let's say if a generation is going through hard times, then you focus on emotional intelligence. If a generation is going through good times, then you focus on mental intelligence and stability, because during good times it's the mental decay that is slapped hard, and during hard times is the emotional instability that is suffering. So it's just intentionality. Now, while Doreen was saying about the feminist venye ina affect the women, again, it's in our effect because of lack of intentionality, because of ignorance. Because if you're intentional, as I'd said, you'd enter a game and find your position. You won't fight that game. And if you can't exist in that game, then figure out how you can make your own game.
Put in
Meaning you have to be so relevant. You have to make yourself so valuable. Paka, they have to switch the rules for you. Either way, it's all intentionality. Hii ya kufuata, like just following some systems just because they're there, and then when you want to rebel that system and you think you're actually doing something good. No, you're not being productive, not to yourself, that is.
so,
What you're
so
being,
are
you're
you
being
saying that the
productive to the
person needs to
system.
prove themselves? They need to work harder against the same thing. So, in short, you're saying
No,
that
not
the
work
system
hard.
is already hard built that they cannot conform, they can change.
No, I didn't say that. I said
Didn't you not say
exactly
that somebody
opposite.
needs to work harder for them to be hard, especially for the person who
That
came in?
is if you can't find your position in the system. Like when you find yourself in a certain system, instead of complaining about that system, look for your position. Look for the position you can play in that system.
Wait, from the example that
And
Doreen gave, Is it about
and
complaining?
play the
Let's say,
system.
for example, if a woman is trying to have a voice, is it coming from a place of she's complaining, not to be heard?
Yeah, she is, because in the same system,
So
there's
she's
a woman
supposed to
who's on
align with
top.
the current system that is there.
In the same system, there's a woman who's on top, right?
Where? Which woman? You didn't catch what she said. She said, in a place where a woman needs to fight, does that mean there's another woman? It means that it's the men that are there. So you're saying she needs to
If
align
you're
with
in
the
a place,
system to be heard.
it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. If you're in a place where you need to fight, then
Yeah.
fight.
Okay, let's change it.
It
Let's say,
has nothing
so
to
the
do
man
with
needs to
gender.
speak louder or needs to enforce himself so that he can be heard by the women, or what?
It has nothing to do with gender.
Okay, let's not even make it
Living in
about
a system
gender.
is not gendered. So let's talk in the sense of alignment. If you're in a position where you need to fight, then fight. Don't be a victim about it. If you're
So
in a
if,
position
let's say,
whereby
for
you don't need to
example,
fight,
instead
then
of
don't fight.
aligning, they are coming with a
Mm.
solution that is better than what is currently the system. So they still
That is out
need.
of alignment. That is out of alignment.
Why is it
If
out
you
of
come up with a
alignment?
solution that
Why can't you not look at it from a place of it has gotten to a place of now it's more of ignorance, because probably there's a higher system that actually is better than what has been the norm.
again, I'm really not understanding your question, because whatever you're talking about, I've talked about it all. Nika unanifanya ni repeat too. When I talk about alignment, it is you aligning with what you can give. Karembo, if you enter a system that is not aligning with you, then
That's
get
what
out
I'm
of that
saying.
system and
If the current
another system that
system
aligns
aligns
with
only to
you.
a certain that's the same thing we're talking about ghetto mentality, where we are saying that this ghetto mentality, for them to be heard, they need to get out of from that and understand the system and align with it, right? But if you're street
No,
smart
I didn't
enough
say.
from the same ghetto alignment, you'll understand the system and make it work for you. So did they really have to force themselves through it? No. They just knew how to manipulate it to make a new system that
What are you
actually
talking
works for
about?
them.
As in, Doreen has just said, Karembo, I really don't get what you're talking about.
It's okay, it's fine.
I'm, to be honest, I'm with you, then mara nikisema hii kitu nyingine tena, you are countering it, so I don't know what you're talking about. Me, I'm adding to what Doreen said. Your feminism or whatever that narrative is only hurting the ignorant women. Me, that's how I'm seeing it. It is not hurting the women who are intentional about it. When you go to a system to force your voice there, it's because you haven't understood that system. You are going there ignorantly. But if you're intentional, then you don't need to fight that system. There are so many systems you can fit in. Like ni kama uangalie like the corporate system. The corporate system yenye sijui narrative imewekwa women had to fight for their position in the corporate. That's a lie. There's no fighting women had to fight in the corporate. Like the only people who are fighting in the corporate are the ones who are entitled, who feel like they
Are you
should
talking
earn
of corporate
whatever.
now, or you're talking of corporate then?
Uh, like anytime, there's no time a woman had to fight for a position in the corporate.
No. But there's one thing, but aren't you
Ebu
not the
give me
same
give me
people who are
give me
saying that
one
the
time.
current
Give me.
systems that we have favor the women, right? So, now I'm even here, I'm wondering, like, okay, so are we talking of corporates now, or you're talking of the old traditional corporate where the women had to fight for their own rights so that they can be heard within a corporate that used to
There
be
is
really
no
mostly for
time
men?
anyone had to fight for. That is just a narrative that was fed to us.
Was it?
There's nothing like a tea. Yeah, it was just a narrative. Now
So
you're
what is
telling me
it
there are
now?
no.
If that was a narrative, so what's the narrative now with the current system?
It's still the same narrative. That's why it's still a gender war. There is no gender war. There's nothing gendered.
So
Productivity
is
is
there a
not
gender
gendered.
war or there is no gender war? Which is which, Diesel?
There is no gender war. That is
Okay.
just a narrative. Unajua hii kuambo sijui mwanamke ako hivi that is just a narrative being put so that we can be
So
we
if there
can
is
be
no gender
we can
war,
divide and
why
conquer.
then do we have it in constitution where they say at least a third should be women, corporate or not corporate?
I'm going to ask you this again, Karembo. What is a narrative? Because clearly I'm trying to tell you
You
that's a
tell me, you're
narrative.
the one
But
who's
wewe ni
talking
kama
about
uelewi.
narratives, but you're saying now
So
there's no
when I
gender
say a
war.
narrative, when you see it in the constitution, that is a narrative. That constitution is a narrative.
But there's no
The
gender war, as you
politics.
say, right? So should we talk about, is it a narrative or it's about merit?
What merit are you talking about? Karembo, there's no gender war. There's nothing.
Yeah, but you see,
Whatever you're
like there's
talking
one thing
about,
he says, it's a narrative, then he says there's no gender war. So which is which?
He's explaining himself,
Mm.
but you're not letting him explain.
Okay.
clearly you're not listening. Wewe unajua wewe, I'm not even getting you at all.
Go ahead.
It's not even becoming very difficult to have a conversation with you because nimekwambia hii kitu ni narrative. Before here we said politics is politics is a game. A game is a narrative. Any system you're fed, that is a narrative. Now you can consciously pick a narrative that suits you. You don't have to follow a system that you found yourself in. Didn't I say that? So when I say gender war is a narrative, it is a system, but there's nothing like ati women wananyimwa hii, because even back in the days there is billionaires women. Back in the days when we say oh women were struggling, Queen Queen Elizabeth kwani amerule for how long? You know, like it's just picking a side, a victimized side. And now we are turning that now it into the a reality, but it's not. When you're intentional, then you don't have to be fighting what you're told to fight. When you're intentional, you'll realize there's nothing wrong with, if you're a man, you'll realize there's nothing wrong with women. When you're intentional as a woman, you'll realize there's nothing wrong with men. If you end up having men who are fucking you up, the problem is not the men. The problem is your pattern, is your consistent pattern in choosing dysfunctional and emotionally unavailable men. It has nothing to do with men in general. It is you who needs to sort out your shit that makes you pick dysfunctional men. If you find yourself fighting in a system whereby you have to shout so hard and you have to be a victim, like literally a victim, not a performance victim, but you have to be a victim so that you can be heard, then you are forcing, that is out of entitlement, you are forcing yourself in that system, and that system doesn't accept you. That's what I'm saying about a narrative. A narrative is just a system.
And you know,
Hata
Dizo,
sijui where I was
no, you're
going
good.
with
Can I?
this.
Can I?
There's two ladies who are raising that. During 1 minute before we come back to you. Naona TMP ameinua mikono juu, najua kwenye yuko ameweka mpaka miguu juu. TMP, go ahead.
Ah, but nataka kuagree kidogo na kitu nini Dizo amesema about them being narratives. Actually, most of the things in the world are narratives when you come to think about it, because they, hata tukiangalia aji zinaitwaje, these propagandas or some of the, hizi zinaitwaje, these theories, what are they called, what theories, I've forgotten the name, what do we call them? Okay, those theories, hey, proper what theories? I've forgotten. Like most of this, you'll find it
Conspiracy.
like, yes, thank you. I was looking for that word. Conspiracy theories. You find that, come up for instance, ya NASA. I think up to now, the narrative we can actually never get to establish what the truth was between whether they really landed in the moon or it was one of the greatest artwork of the best photographer at that time who managed to stage something that looked as if they landed in the moon. So those are two different narratives that you're given, and then now it brings the old people now, excited to talk about, to have the conversation. And that is the same thing, for instance, when we come to the family setup. What is happening? There are different narratives that are put out there. The narratives that families are horrible, because when you look at these people who are talking about or pushing these particular narratives, they themselves will find they're from families, and most of the times, or even some times, you'll find probably even like a full two parents family. They have like a mother and a father live alone right now, how they're like being. You find that now they are pushing a narrative because again maybe it suits them, maybe because it's of the money. But when you even get to do even a deeper research, you get to realize some of these people who are pushing certain narratives, they don't live by that in their realities. So what it gets the energies, it gets you all hyped, it gets people now to form alliances. This group supports this group doesn't support that, and it keeps the whole conversation going. Sometimes I tend to think it's to distract from the real things that really matter, but all these are just a bunch of, sometimes actually that is why I tend to not want to engage in I remember the other day, Special Cosmic, this guy I met, and then he's asking me if I think PDD is guilty and something like that. And some of those I actually don't, so those are some of the things that I'll not end up wanting to invest so much of my energy in, because you see, the best system that can give me feedback is the reality that I am experiencing. And what Dizo has said, these narratives are being pushed to become our reality. That is why you find, like, for instance, right now, the girl child are being ruined. If we ruin this, what will become now? That will become the reality, because now these are the next people. They won't get married. They won't get kids. They don't want kids. So you start with a narrative and then you push it into a reality, because now you're gonna have to have different sides that are fighting about a particular thing. I want to go back to the thing about stupidity and curiosity, and for me, I actually want to admit that most of the times I actually driven by the true stupidity, because the first stage is admitting I'm stupid, but now I don't go with it from a point of of now, like, being ignorant. You become curious, because if you're curious, you like want to explore, you want to get to understand better. There is that strong desire to learn, and then you see, with curiosity, you become open-minded. You're open to whatever may, because you're not coming with already a preformed formation, foundation for a certain thing. You're curious about it, so you're willing to learn, even if it means having to, that that at that time when you're curious, it becomes easier to deconstruct your own belief systems that you thought were accurate once given with proof and factual facts. Because you see, if I'm not rigid and I come then, and maybe I've thought something, like, let's say, for instance, a stereotype I've had. For instance, I'll give
Yes.
an example. Let's say I've had a stereotype of a certain society, for instance. And then when I go and I'm given facts about it from a point of curiosity, and I'm given that, you see that I'm able to break it down, because it now becomes easier for you to discover things, to even become innovative, to grow. But if you stick at it from a point of now, like, being ignorant, and the fact that you're stupid and staying at it, is you lack a good sense of understanding and even rational thinking, because you refuse to learn at all, and you don't even understand the mistakes that you make while at it. So I think the best approach in life is to accept that yes, you're stupid, you don't know about this and this. I mean, there's so many things in the world that we have to know about it, and I think even if we're given all the time in the world, we're never really gonna learn, know all of them. So the simplest way to get to have an understanding of many things is just keep an open mind. Of course, there are those basic structures that don't need to be overwhelmed, but there are things, these other pebbles. Then I think with an open mind, it becomes even easier to have a conversation at any point. But you see, again, that is what the system does best, like the people have been talking about. The system wants you in that particular manner. It wants me, nataka, they want, getting that particular reaction, that emotional reaction, that emotional outburst out of you is what makes it work. Yeah. That is why I've seen these people having conversations about this current government and the fact that they've really mastered how to make use of PR as much as at some points, if and other times it's evoking an emotion. And as long as you're evoking an emotion and people are talking about it, then it's easier. So, Michael, I think I just had that to share, but the whole thing about trying to fight the system is just about keeping an open mind and understanding that there are some things that you have a blind spot to. I think it was earlier, I don't know who was saying the same thing as, for instance, married people. When they, I mean, like these people who talk about marriage being horrible. You see, most of the times these people will talk from their experiences. Maybe, like, let's say I've been married and it doesn't work out. I'll come and give from that experience, and that will be my feedback loop. Not necessarily to say that the family that I came from didn't want to, but I just want to have the bias of the fact that this that I've tried to create hasn't worked. So sometimes these narratives, they are pushed, and if you don't know how to sieve out Mosore now with the digital era, then it becomes because you end up picking a lot of things that are really not useful because hey, yeah. Let me not talk about,
Kwanza
I'm not so good at monologue. Yeah.
hiyo story ya
Dizo,
marriages don't,
kwanza ganio.
hiyo story ya marriages sijui don't work, sijui nini don't work, or men are trash, sijui women are evil or something. That one comes from unhealed people. Like, when you generalize something, it's because you don't have the capacity to hold yourself accountable for the role you played in that thing. When you go and get, maybe let's say you go and a man character develops you, it's not all men are evil. It is just that man that you attracted that fucked you up. When you say women are, let's say you go get character developed by a woman, and you say you generalize women are evil. It is not all women are evil. It is just that woman that you chose that fucked you up. So here the constant is, it's your role that the role that you play in that being. You don't want to accept that, hey, I'm the one who attracted that person. And me attracting that person, I need to learn something from that. If you attract emotionally unavailable men, then ask yourself, why is it that you're attracting emotionally unavailable men? If you are attracting manipulative women, then you should be asking yourself, why are you attracting manipulative women? As in, why are you just ending up with these people? So it's not at the marriages are bad. If you look at the rules of marriage, as in, marriage as a dynamic is very functional. Same as politics as a dynamic is very functional. Religion as a dynamic is very functional. The problem is going through these systems unconsciously. If I use maybe a general word, going to these systems with ignorance. You want to play into a system without even understanding your role in that system. Una flow to. A lot of people are going into marriages because of love. You don't even understand what that love is. Very clueless. Wewe umeambiwa if you're in love then you marry. You don't understand shit. You are following what you have been told. So the biggest problem is this ignorance. With ignorance, you can't be accountable because how? You're not seeing yourself. You are seeing outside. You're seeing the blame is outside there. So the fight, all everything that we have out there, for as long as it's not your reality, then it is a narrative. For as long as you are not conscious, you'll end up following a narrative, and it won't just be you. You'll put your next generation in the same narrative, and the generations will go like that, ndio hizi story tunasikia sijui generational curses, unasikia sijui generation breakers, sijui the chosen one. All those things are narratives. It's just someone within the generation that decides to now live consciously. And when you decide to live consciously, can you imagine where people are unconscious, then you become conscious? You are dangerous to that system. So of course you'll be termed as mad. mm? You'll be termed as rebellious, as in you'll be given all the negative labels, so as to discourage you from going against that system. And the people who are going to give you the labels is not the system, it's the unconscious people. Like venye mara mingi I'll remain on nini, I'll remain on politics. How many times tumetusi kina Eric Omondi? How many times tumetusi kina Boniface? How many times tumetusi hata Ruto? Sisi tuko unconscious. These people are consciously playing the game and they are earning from it. Those who go play the game unconsciously, tunasikia wameuliwa. Umeingia umeuliwa. As in Babu Wino has abused very big people. Why hasn't it been deaded? Huh? We have who? Sonko. Sonko at one time even called the president in front of media. Personal phone call. Are you playing? He wasn't killed.
Rafiki yangu.
Rafiki yangu, wacha nimpigie rafiki yangu. Everyone who has been killed, they have been used to gain traction in the system. Everyone who has been killed. CRT, their death couldn't have been stopped. It could have, but if their death was stopped, then it wouldn't have fed the system. So ukiangalia mtu yote that sijui Nambo was assassinated, that thing could have been stopped.
I mean, there's also unaangalia venye mpaka kuna witness waliona hiyo kitu ikifanyika aje manzi.
Aje. Alafu kidogo munaenda kwa court, munaambiwa ati hii kesi imedismissiwa for lack of witnesses. I mean, aje, we can't keep on having that same narrative. You're telling me and you can't come up with a counter of making sure witnesses are protected. You can. But we are not going to go there because people are not conscious to start questioning that side. And the moment you start questioning consciously like that in that game, without you being ready to play it, what's gonna happen? You're gonna be eliminated. And it will keep on going like that. So the biggest problem is not even gender, the biggest problem is not even the systems. The biggest problem we have is ignorance. Yo, Doreen.
Yeah. I have a challenge with what Dizo and TMP are talking about narratives. And I'm thinking, I think, and you Dizo said that if it's something that's not relatable, that does not relate to you, it's a narrative. And I kind of okay, here's my opinion on it, is that okay, let's leave gender aside. Let's talk about um racism. Say we have, of course, maybe we've lived here, and maybe racism is something that you think of from a distance, and people are just talking about racism, and it's in history. So, would it be right for me to say that if I have not experienced racism, then it's a narrative? Again, now ties back to what I'm trying to run away from. If you have not experienced something that biases you because of your gender, does that mean that it does not exist? So, again, I am none to speak about history, but of course we read history, and when we read history, we were not there. So of course, maybe the ones who transmitted the history had a bias. Eh, okay, history of course comes in many forms. Like, for instance, what can I think of that history? Maybe like the people who are writing the Bible, we don't know where they were. Like, we weren't, okay, personally, I wasn't there when they were writing the Bible. I don't even know whether the person who was writing the Bible was intoxicated or not. I don't know. Like, I wonder, those are things you have no way of making them credible. You just listen to them and you're like, okay, how can I make sense of this? So now this to bring me back to, I was curious to listen what Baiko and Karimbo are saying when I wanted to say when I finished talking previously, but I had something along the lines of, is it that, like, what happens to those people who are struggling with the system and all those things? And okay, I'm trying to make sense of what they were saying because they didn't finish, and then I think, I don't know who stepped in, they didn't finish what they were saying. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't relate to something, it's a narrative, because sometimes, of course, whoever wrote history had a reason why they were writing history. For instance, okay, not for instance, they had a reason why they were writing it, and it's maybe upon me to question history or to accept history as is. But not everything is, if if it doesn't relate to you, doesn't mean it's a narrative. It could be true, because if today I went and sat down and wrote my history of how I've been maybe like prejudiced as a woman, that's my experience, and it doesn't take away from the fact that someone else wasn't. And if you didn't experience it, doesn't make it a narrative because I experienced it and I knew that it happened. I don't know if I'm making sense. But yeah, I just wanted to chime in on what we are calling narratives and what we are calling systems.
And you're right.
So
Yeah, this will go ahead.
a narrative can be right. Like when you consciously decide to follow a narrative, it's no longer a narrative for you. But when you can't relate with it, then it's a narrative. That's what I actually meant. Like, let's take for instance, marriages are not working. Yeah, that's a fact. We are seeing they're not working. Now, if you are not relating to that marriages are not working, then that is just a narrative to you. That is not that is just a narrative for you, because wewe hata it's not even affecting you. Wewe unaweza kaa hivi uangalie, if we are all seeing marriages are not working, why are we still doing it? Then now you start looking at it from a third eye. It is happening maybe because of something has been monetized in it, or you start looking at it totally different from the emotional perspective. So narratives can be true, others can be a lie. It just depends with you are conscious about the system you are in.
And this will, to add on what you're saying, I think the problem with as we rightly began, I think we didn't understand where we were. But all of us is in the definitions. If we go back to the definitions of how we view things, you start to realize that that is where the problem is, because you can be talking about the same thing, but the way we are describing it is completely different, bro. But we are talking about the same thing. I remember one time I had an exercise with you here, Nikawambia describe Jesus. You remember how that went? As in, there's always a standard definition of things. And that is why I say science tries to prove stupidity. No, I didn't say that. Science is stupidity. Because you are accepting that, bro, I don't know shit. What if I try and figure out what I'm seeing? For example, if you look at issues to do with how we spread, say, how we spread propaganda, you start to realize it's just like a small thing that people are willing to push out. And bro, it is taken and it is stretched to the biggest of things. Bro, how do you explain that kuna Democrats and Republicans? How do you explain that kuna S plus na kuna watu hiyo group ingine sijui? How do you explain that? It's just like a small thing that people have figured out how to touch on it. If you go back to the ghetto mentality, it always takes you back to a very small thing. Fear of growth because of the familiar. As in, you don't want to get out of that environment, but reality is you are outgrowing it. You just don't want to get out of it. It takes you back to a point of stupidity. As in, bro, do I become ignorant that I do not see what is right in front of my eyes? Or do I just become blissful that I am seeing, but bro, it doesn't matter what I'm seeing? And I think that's where we are with the ghetto mentality thing. You find people that now it's up to you to decide, bro, what are you seeing? That's why I actually said when we started, for me, I enjoy seeing how stupid we are. What is your level of stupidity? Where uko wapi? Uko wapi? Uko wapi? It is not the same. People are stupid in different ways, but we all have to be in agreement. And this is what you are talking about, this consciousness. We all have to be in agreement that we are stupid. We don't know shit. Because you cannot explain a repetitive data of single parent, single bro, whatever, bro. It is single. How can you explain that? It means that we are all falling for the same lie. But how stupid are you to accept that you don't know shit to a point that you go back and identify that lie? Na uanze kusema mimi ni mjinga, and you start changing for the right things. Because we keep on repeating patterns, we keep on repeating tasks, but we don't want to accept we are repeating them. Because once we try to go that direction, there is always an umbrella. That is the victim point, whereby it takes you to a whole place of ghetto mentality. Oh, it was not your fault. Oh, your father. Oh, bro, you're a fucking adult. When are you going to be responsible of your choices? Mr. Kudanganya. Mimi hakuna mahali utainipata nimeshikwa juu ya mtoto wangu. That will never happen, bro. It will never happen. Because I have food.
What do you mean kushikwa juu ya mtoto wako?
I mean exactly that. As in, bro, I am arrested because of my family. Like, what the fuck? Didn't I know what family was? Why am I existing like I don't understand what I'm talking about? As in, I go fucked somebody, she got pregnant. I went the fuck there and nikamuona akizaa mtoto mzima na nikaitwa mpaka jina yangu. Literally ameitwa jina yangu, accepting that I have signed this is my responsibility, and then I'm arrested because of that. Why? Am I stupid? I mean, you have done something that has physical implications, alafu na behave iko kwa imagination aje. As in, mtu anakujanga kwako analia, hey! I need books, and you say yes, okay, sawa, chukua kitabu, alafu unasema sikukuwa na huyo. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, motherfucker? Mi utainipata mahali kama hapo, because one, mi nisha accept I'm stupid enough to understand.
Na unajua
Mhm.
unaona hapo
Yeah.
is the same thing. Sasa unapata when people are unconscious,
Yes.
ndio utakuja sasa uanze kugeneralize vitu uko like ai, hawa wanawake wanatutumia vibaya bro. Hao wanakutumia wewe, ulijipata aje kwa hiyo position?
Bro,
Yenye huyu mwanamke alikutumia vibaya.
kwani ulikuwa dildo? Haukuwa na kitu ya kusema?
As in, wewe ulijipata aje hapo? And then unajipata paka to generalize paka we are in a point where now we are even sitting together as men discussing how bad these women are, or you find women sitting together how trash these women are.
Like you had no
Where are
opinion.
you? Yeah, like where are you even playing the role? And some of us, we take that conversation so seriously to a point now we act out of fear. Most of people are not getting into relationship not because they've gone through it and experienced that shitty thing. It's because the fear they've been put by other people's narrative, people who haven't healed from their own shit.
Mm.
Someone comes and tells you, you know, women are bad because of the things he went through.
Yeah.
Now you take that narrative and be like, hey, yeah, Mimi, I'm going to fear women.
Bro.
Instead of you looking at yourself and making yourself your own, you make your own narrative and be like, okay, let me approach these women now. Let me approach them with information. I've been told this is how they are. So if you are poor or if you are rich, she's going to be with you. Then the moment you are poor, she's going to leave you.
Understand that.
Meaning the connection I'm going to look for is not going to be based on transaction if that's not what I want. You know, so when you're intentional from the word go, you don't end up in these group conversations that avoid accountability.
Bro.
You know,
And Dizo, let me take you somewhere a bit darker than what we are used to. Najua si tumezoea 50 shades of grey. Leo nataka kuingia 51 shades of dark. Because you see, Dizo, one thing that we keep on talking about but we don't realize it is one, wewe, you are not equipped to be with a woman at all. Because if you are truly equipped, then you will be understanding each stage that you are in. You said it very well, Lizo, that ungekuwa mahali unaelewa Kenya unafanya, then your conversations will be very different. I mean, how do you explain that you are with a woman who is pregnant, but you are there for sex? How are you explaining that shit? It means that back at the conversation level that you didn't have the necessary conversations, and now you're just avoiding blame. That's where we are.
then before you know it, she gets another child,
Motherfucker. Now
and you're
you're
like,
starting to marry, bro. Unasema ni mapenzi, motherfucker. Ai, hata wewe ujipendi, my friend.
you're not learning shit. Uko tu.
You're just
Alafu
a
unasema
troll.
venye I'm trying my best. I'm out here hustling, but this woman is not even. Bro, you're not trying shit.
You are not even equipped for that shit, bro. As in, itikia we ni mjinga tu na mapema, usonge mbele. As in, there's nothing as... You know, this is why I have always seen this thing in courts. Men get persecuted because of their own cleverness. They pretend to be better than the system. Now the system shows you that, bro, we ni mjinga. Hii kitu tumekuwa hapa for how many years? Let me show you something. Technicalities. I used to tell somebody else, bro, lawyers exist in technicalities. Akajamu juu ni lawyer, nikamwambia ni ukweli, bro, you try to prove technicalities. As in, ulisema hii ni white, mbona inakaa grey? So si white, hii color ni gani? Inakuforce una define hiyo ni nini. Na ushatolewa kwa game yako. You already saw it, but unawekwa doubt. It is repressed doubt yenye inaenda inakufuck up. Because at that point,
That's why lawyer akikukujia anakwambiaga, tell me everything as it was.
motherfucker.
Usinidanganye, niambie. Ndio atafute loopholes. Yeye hata anakwambia usiniambie ukweli, naenda kukusema.
Nataka kujua tuna
Nataka tu
infiltrate kitu
kujua.
aje.
Ndio sasa mimi nikienda kule
Eh,
nijue venye nitawatoa huku.
buda. Ulikuwa umeua mse ukivaa shati ya white. Na mse akisema ulivaa
Uh-huh.
ya red. Hebu nipatie screen.
Bas. Kwa
Ilikuwa
hivyo
ya
si
red,
yeye
eh?
uli.
Sawa. They will go there with you. As in, That is the essence of the whole system. You learning to find out, and that is where we were earlier. It was streetwise and street smarts. Street smarts is learning the environment and learning to propagate and penetrate it to a point that you become stronger than that system. But not in an essence that you're trying to fight it. No, you're just existing beyond it. Wewe unaendelea tu na mambo yako, but hiyo inaendelea mambo yake. You're not affecting each other. We keep on talking about duality. But I don't think Dizo to explore point ya duality to the max, because duality means that two things are existing at the same time. Bro, mimi na wewe tuna exist. Dizo wewe ni mse hard-headed. Mi ni mse nitakuingisha kwa rabbit. But we are existing in the same place. How are you explaining that shit and we are not fighting? How do you explain that? That is where now ghetto mentality comes in, where